The draw is done. The groups are nearly set. One bracket, one trophy. Now the FanDuel road to the final begins. We do know that Canada is the third choice to win Group B at FanDuel, a group that features Switzerland, Qatar, and a team that's to be decided in a playoff from March. That said, Group B is the only group in which a team from Pot 4 is currently projected to be the favorite, and we don't even know who that team is yet. Welcome in. This is the FanDuel road to the final. I'm your host, Wesley Chang. We're joined by two gentlemen who've had a very long day. Stephen Caldwell, Kevin Kilban. Guys, how are you feeling so far?
How you feeling?
I feel good. I feel very good. Yeah, I'm up for it. I think it's one of those days where it seemed like it never ended. It never started, actually. It took a long time for the draw to actually start, but we enjoyed it all. Yeah, we enjoyed it.
Yeah, we love talking about football. Sometimes you've got to try and shut us up a little bit rather than get us to talk more, but it was a fun day.
Well, I'm sure our audience would have no problem with that. Lots to go through, and obviously the very first place that we're going to talk about, Canada and their group. Very interesting. Not the best case scenario, not the worst case scenario. They're the third choice to win the group. Plus 550 are their odds to win it. Are you surprised they're being given such long odds to get it going, Kevin?
I actually felt that they may have been longer, given what potentially is going to come in out of that European playoff spot. So I was looking at that overall, and I thought maybe slightly longer. But you look at it in context, or in the context of that group, and it's probably about right, actually, for where they are. So, yeah, I think they are about right. When you look at it, Stevie, overall, it probably is where they should be, really.
I think so. I think that when you look at potentially Italy, we've got to keep talking like that, but Switzerland being the sort of European heavyweights that they are, then it's not a surprise that they're odds like that to win the group. The important thing is that they have a game in there that really is winnable in Qatar. So overall, I think, as you said, Wes, not terrible, but not an amazing group. Whenever you play European sides, the experience that they have playing in major tournaments, and they've been there, done it. They're guys that usually play at the highest levels in the top 5 leagues. It makes playing against them really difficult. They condense the pitch. There's not a lot of space. And Canada have had some experience of that recently, but overall, not too much. So I think the European sides for sure are favourites.
Well, look, we said with Team Canada, there was a chance that there were going to be 2 European teams in their group. It happens, unfortunately for them. Exactly. It happens. But, you know, the odds show they're about 4 times less likely to win the group than a team like Switzerland. Very interesting to see. The other thing that's worth pointing out, there is a potential playoff team with shorter odds to win the tournament than Canada. That team's Italy, obviously expected to win the playoff. But would you make any of the other teams in that playoff mix a favorite should they make it all the way to Group B? Oh,
no, I would not. I think that when you look at the kind of playoff mix, in that pathway, I really feel Northern Ireland have very little chance. I might be harsh, but I really don't think Northern Ireland can win 2 games of the magnitude they would have to. I think Italy will take care of them. But Wales and Bosnia are good sides, Kevs. We've said it.
It will be Italy away from home in that final of the playoff, either in Wales or in Bosnia. So that
tough places.
That is a difficult game for them in itself. But in saying that, I don't think anybody seriously expects Italy to fall short come this playoffs, and we all expect them to be in Canada for that opening game, don't we? That's where we expect it to be. In saying that, you mentioned there about Switzerland being 4 times more likely to top that group than Canada. I don't see that. I think that's slightly disrespectful to Canada in that respect there, because I think if you look at it overall, yes, Italy, if they do qualify, will be favourites to top the group, but I think the gap between Switzerland and Canada should be, I don't know, because if you look at the world rankings, there's not much between them in world rankings. So there's very little to talk about when you're talking about Switzerland or Canada.
Yeah, when you look at quality of squads and potentially starting 11s, there's not a lot. There's certainly not 4 times the difference. But it is that experience thing, and it's the fact that Canada don't have a World Cup point at this moment, you know.
Yes.
It's to think they're going to win a game or then go on and win a group is a long push, you know. But they're playing at home. They've got a lot of quality players. They have been improving. They have been getting better. So the gap is not as big, in my opinion, I think, Kev's, as the odds suggest.
So come March, let's just say Italy doesn't actually get it done.
Yes.
Do you think then Switzerland is the team that would jump up to the top and be the favorite?
Probably yes, I would think so. Out of those, not many would probably be familiar that be watching that with Bosnia, but Bosnia are a very good side. They've got a lot of technically gifted players. Wales are a solid side. We seen Canada play against them earlier on this year, didn't we? So, but I would expect Canada to be better than both of those sides. I do actually think that. So Canada maybe get a little bit closer to Switzerland, but out of the sides, world ranking suggests it. Calibre of players suggest it that Switzerland will be the top ranked or the best prize side or worst prize side, should I say, come World Cup time.
I would say so, Kev. I would say that if Wales did come through, a lot of that would be in the fact that they're playing at home and through these playoffs in the semi-final and then the final. So then taking them away, you know, across the water and playing in a World Cup in Canada, I wouldn't make them favourites ahead of Switzerland. But Bosnia have a lot of quality. They've got a lot of good players, and if somehow they come through, then I think the odds between Switzerland and Bosnia would be really tight.
Gotcha.
Because Bosnia are a solid side. They've got top-class players. They've got veteran players as well, so they have that kind of experience thing that we keep talking about with Switzerland. And I feel like they might be, you know, kind of tighter in terms of who is the favourite to win the group.
Well, one thing important, we don't even know the tournament schedule just yet. We should get FanDuel odds to qualify the group once the schedule does come out. But what would you say is Canada's most likely path to get to the next stage, Kev?
Who do they need to beat
What
in
position?
terms of that?
Well, beat and then position, I guess.
Well, I think we've kind of tried to look at everything, all the permutations through it. I think one win essentially could get you to the knockout path.
Yeah.
So you look at Qatar as the side. Canada simply have to win that game. Overall, Canada have to win that game, and then you get a point against Italy, Wales, Bosnia, Northern Ireland, whoever that's going to be. If you get 4 points, I think you're going to have enough to get out if that's the case. Whereas, to be honest with you there, Stevie. So it's so difficult when you're looking at it because you were waiting to see who that European side is that's going to come out. But Canada simply have to beat Qatar. If they beat Qatar,
absolutely,
I think everything else is off the table at that stage.
Yeah, I tell you what I'd love to see. I'd love to see Canada play that first game and not lose, right? And let's say it is Italy, they get a draw. And then they got to win against Qatar.
Yes.
We know that. It's a fact. They must beat Qatar. And they're sitting on 4 points then, Wes. And they've got Switzerland to come. The pressure's off a bit. Momentum's building. You've got national pride all behind Canada. That is a scenario that we're saying, well, Canada, you know, don't have a lot to lose, Kev, against Switzerland then. Maybe they get another point and so they could finish in second place. Or there might even be in a position then they might be fighting it out with Switzerland for that group, you know. So I think we've said it so many times today, but the first game, and Stefan Eustáquio, the Canadian midfielder, said it to us on the live show today, that the first game is so important. It gives you such confidence. It builds that momentum. It settles you into the tournament. So any kind of point or something from that game is going to be vital.
It's funny that you mentioned him talking about confidence because we went through a poll and we did have to ask the Canadian audience how they're feeling about Canada's chances. They want to win. How badly what do they got to do to win Group B? The response was overwhelming, as you'd imagine. So the fans, they did their job. 54% of those who put a vote in has Canada to win this group. Listen, if those voters actually believe it, I'm sure they'd be very excited to get Canada at plus 550 to win this group on FanDuel. But obviously, a lot of content to go through right here. We're just getting started on this show. Much more still to come as we take a closer look at the importance of a first-place finish for Canada in its group as the FanDuel Road to the Final continues right here on TSN. The FanDuel road to the final rolls along with a look at Canada's futures for the tournament. Again, they're plus 550 to win their group, but if they qualify for the next round, they're plus 600 to reach the quarters, plus 2,000 to reach the semifinals, and of course, 100 to 1 to win the tournament outright. And we still don't know who's that final team in Group B, but Hein, that didn't stop FanDuel from listing that final playoff team as the favorite to win this group.
Little surprising to me, considering if Italy doesn't come out of the European playoff, these odds will change dramatically, I think. I think Switzerland becomes the favorite if Italy doesn't come out. And we've talked to a lot of our Italian-Canadian friends. They aren't too confident of them making out of this. Italy has not looked good this year. And Switzerland has looked great in 2025. Unbeaten, 7-3-0. And if we're looking historically at this tournament, they've made it out of the group stage 5 of the last 6.
Well, look, the other thing that jumps out to me, Canada's almost, what, a 4x multiple of Switzerland to win this group? Yet, you look at the other markets available on FanDuel, Switzerland and Canada have the exact same number to qualify for the quarters, qualify for the semis. So that's just something that catches my eye in terms of why the number's that way.
One extra important note when it comes to this group, if Canada wins the group, that means they stay in Vancouver for 8 days before playing their round of 32 matchup. If they finish second in the group, that means they're going to LA. They're playing on 4 days rest, which is huge when you get to the knockouts.
Obviously, that's a great one. One more note to add here. This is the only group where the pot 4 team is the favorite. We don't even know what that team is quite yet. And of course, we've talked a lot about Canada's potential path to the knockout stage. Not the best case scenario, not the worst case scenario as well for Canada with the draw. But as I rejoin Steven and Kevin here on the couch, it seems like there's a lot of parity across the board. Gents, every time at one of these major tournaments, we always discuss the group of death. But, Stevie, I'm not sure there really is one this time around.
There's not, Wes. There's not. And the reason for that is the 48 teams. It's just too many teams. There's a lot of teams that obviously have never been there before or are higher up in the world rankings. And so I think to expect that 4 teams were going to be together, there was a scenario because of Norway being so strong in pot 3 and, of course, the team that Canada got in pot 4, we're thinking it's Italy, that there could have been a group of death, but it was a slight scenario with 12 groups, Kev, wasn't it?
Yeah, it's it has watered the tournament down. But in saying that, I think it does give one of the lesser nations from pot 4, one of the nations outside the playoff teams, a chance to really attack one of the pot 3 sides. I think that's maybe their advantage going into this tournament. But looking at it overall, there's a couple of groups that have 3 strong teams in. But again, you expect them to win against the lesser team in that group that gives them the hope of getting out in any case as a third-place team.
Yeah, so with those groups, obviously, nothing like we've seen in the past. And, like you said, that's just how it is with this new format. But, obviously with that draw, a lot of things shifted. And as usually with these things, some win, some lose. Kevin, is there any team that you felt was the biggest winner based off of how it went?
Yeah, there's a number of sides, I think, overall, but I think the biggest winner out of everyone was probably a side that we favoured in the past going into past tournaments. It's Belgium. Belgium have had a really favourable draw here, and I think overall, if they'd have looked at this from the start, they'd have looked at it, Stevie, I would have thought that they could not have hoped or dreamed for a better draw than they got, Belgium, because, I mean, just saying then, the pressure that's been on them in major tournaments, they've been ranked #1 for going into major tournaments, and they've failed to deliver on the big stage. It might be a case or a scenario now for Belgium where they can be a little bit more relaxed, go and play a bit more of an open brand of the game and go and win this group handsomely. I think they will. I think it's a great scenario for Belgium.
I think also because we felt that Belgium were a vulnerable pot 1 team. If they'd have got a couple of sides in there that were decent, and we felt like some of the favourites from pots 2, 3 or 4, then Belgium might have been in some trouble. But when you look at their draw, they'll be delighted.
Yeah.
It's always nice to have very much winnable games that can build that confidence, Kev, isn't it? Because you want to be trying to progress through a tournament with momentum. You don't want to be necessarily struggling through the group. So I think when we look at Egypt, Iran, New Zealand, very winnable games. Belgium could potentially have 9 points and have that momentum and that confidence that they might need to make quite a push throughout the knockout stages.
Well, you guys have mentioned this previously. There are no free rides at this level. So obviously, every game, regardless of how the quality of the opponent you think it is, still needs to happen. Still need to get it done.
Yeah.
But on the flip side, we talk about biggest winner. There's got to be some teams that are probably not happy with how it went. Who do you think is the biggest loser after the draw?
Biggest loser's a difficult one, as we said. There's nobody that I think their success through the tournament is vulnerable in terms of teams that we expect in the knockouts, as Kev. There's some groups with like 2 or 3 teams that are decent little groups, but ultimately I don't see there being an out-and-out loser. You know, you're looking at France, Ecuador,
France, Ecuador with Senegal's in that group as well. They're strong, 3 strong sides there. If France don't necessarily get off to a winning start under a bit more pressure, you do feel as though they've got too much quality overall. You think that. But it comes back to the point, Wes, as well. So many teams, if they don't win the first game or if they don't necessarily get a point in the first game, no matter who it is, they're under serious pressure then going into those last 2 games, and you start to watch other results around you as well, which puts more pressure mentally on you. You start to overthink it.
And they also want to win the group, Wes. France want to win the group.
For sure.
They've been given that seeding to try and win the group and come through and miss out in England till the semi-finals and then potentially Spain or Argentina. So they've got the ability to win the group, but it's going to be harder with the fact that they've got 2 decent teams in there.
Well, as mentioned, the structure of the tournament, winning the group matters so much, especially with the way these brackets are all set up group by group. So obviously that'll be a big thing. But coming up after the break, we got to put a spotlight on 3 teams that have shorter odds to win the tournament than Brazil, the favorite to win Group C at FanDuel. We'll take a look at some of the other group odds at FanDuel. This is the road to the final. It'll continue right here on TSN. We didn't see very much movement at all in terms of the FanDuel futures immediately following the draw. But one move we did see, England to win the tournament did shorten. They were 6-1. They dropped down to plus 550 at FanDuel. As you can see here, a heavy favorite to win Group L. And one interesting note, no massive swings, especially from the chalk options for the tournament. However, England does land in Group L, and they did have their odds shortened slightly. Hein, you have a note that says there's some contradictory evidence to that point.
Yeah, we flagged this in the pregame about Group L. So say England wins Group L, which they're favored to do so. That then means round of 16. They have to play in Mexico City. From Mexico City, we said this before, Mexico City has an altitude 2,000 feet higher than Denver. So this is altitude on steroids. Then, if they win that, they got to go to Miami for a quarterfinal, likely against Brazil. One note, too, I'm not saying Miami is Manaus in 2014, but England played their first game against Italy in Manaus. From there, a loss and a draw did not make it out of the group stage. So I don't get England's odds shortening like that. Stephen and Kevin probably loving this because this means it might not be coming home. But I'm a little concerned about England because of the path. Also, that game against Brazil, you're going against Carlo Ancelotti, world-class manager, 5 Champions League as a manager. Brazil could be dangerous and also used to the heat and humidity of Miami that England might not be able to play well in.
Well, guess what? The reality is England still plus 550 to win it all. They're the second shortest odds just behind Spain. Still a long way to go until the tournament, but that hasn't stopped FanDuel bettors from getting their plays in early in the outright winner market. Here's a look at the 5 most popular choices to win the tournament outright at FanDuel as the FanDuel road to the final continues. Gentlemen, you heard Hein's comment, spotlighting a little bit of weather. Do you think there's any merit in that for the English side?
I do, yeah. I've always felt that weather might be an issue for England and some of the European teams that are not so used to it, especially the humidity and some of the outdoor stadiums, Kev. So whatever pathway that provides, and when Chris takes us through that, and you see them in a place like Miami, Hard Rock, you know, it's going to be the sun beating down on it. It's going to be very, very difficult for them to play the type of game that they want to play.
And potentially to Mexico if they were able to get out. That's going to be very difficult for England to deal with that. I expect them to win the group. I do think that. I think that's the way it's going to be for them. Whereas if you look at even rankings and everything around them, what they did in qualification, England have always found it fairly easy in qualification, but when they've got to major tournaments, it's where they've struggled, and that's been the problem. They've got to finals recently, they've lost on penalty kicks, which is very, very difficult for them to take. But it's a mentality problem with England to get themselves over the line and seriously go on and win it, and that's been their issue. So don't underestimate Panama. Honestly, I think that's the right down at the bottom there. They're a higher-ranked team than Ghana. They may spring a surprise now, and again that comes down to the weather. If they're in a favourable area from their point of view, I think they've got a chance just to get one win from this World Cup, which could get them out of the group. That's going to be something I'll be looking out for. Yeah,
I wouldn't be surprised. We like Panama. Seen a lot of them. They're coached very well. Even like a team like Croatia, I think, are better suited to the heat because they play that slow form of football. They keep the ball. It's not necessarily vertical up and down stuff. It's more methodical and possession based. So they might be better suited. Maybe England can play that. They've got the players that can, but we've not seen it, you know, in a few years historically from England. Normally they're the team that concede possession to some of the better sides. So the only thing that I think England have in their favour is strength and depth, and subs will be important. Where substitutes coming on, you think about, you know, just the number 10 position where they've got Bellingham and Foden and Palmer and Morgan Rogers. They have the ability to make changes and still stay strong.
Well, obviously, if you look at how all of the kind of paths have been set up, if things go right for England, they have a potential clash with Brazil, a team that's obviously highly favoured as well. You know, what are your thoughts on how that group's going to play out for that side?
Yeah, I mean, it'll be exciting to see. I think that'd be a great game, isn't it? This man here wants to see more of the heavyweight clashes. He's not happy with the seeding, so he would love Brazil and England in a quarter-final. I look at Brazil's group. We like Morocco. We say they're a good side, and they are a good side. I don't think they're as good as Brazil. And I think Brazil have come into this tournament a little bit under the radar. And I think that might suit them, because normally the pressure on them is immense. My Scotland's there. It's a terrible group for Scotland, but they can maybe squeak third place. But I don't think in any way, shape or form that Brazil or Morocco won't be the top two in this group, and I actually think Brazil's got a bit more than Morocco.
Yeah, Scotland pushing Morocco to try to get second, but I do think that. I think those odds are about right when you look at those two where they are. I do think that Brazil obviously favourites. We know that. I think with expectations around Brazil not as high as it has been in past tournaments, I think that's maybe something that could help them. Internally, there will be a lot of pressure. In Brazil, there'll be a lot of pressure. Expectations will be that they've got to win the World Cup. I think we know that. But if we're looking at it overall, I think that Brazil will be a side that can go about business in their own manner, their own way. They don't necessarily... And Carlo Ancelotti, in a coach that they've got, is someone who will keep everything nice and calm for them. Internally, it won't be as erratic or as chaotic as it will be back on the streets of Brazil. So, overall, I think Brazil will be a serious test. If they get England, it's a tie that I would really love to see in that last 32.
Yeah.
It would be an amazing game, and I think Brazil will beat England.
Well, look, obviously we mentioned these two teams, kind of juggernauts. When you look at the draw now, a lot of the top teams have settled into reasonably good positions. I'll throw it right back to you, Kev. Is there any team to you that stands out as having an edge based off how the draw went?
In what? In terms of going on to win it, an individual team?
Individual team to win it, and did the draw kind of give them a bone, give them a little bit easier?
Argentina?
Argentina, yeah, that's a very good call.
Easy group as well, yeah.
Easy group. I think the US as well. I think Mexico would be another one, will be very, very happy. But if you're looking at it as a side that you think are capable of going to go and win the tournament, Argentina, absolutely, Stephen, yeah. I think that they're a side that you look at Argentina and everything is essentially built around one player for the side. The work rate that they put in around that one player as well, I think Argentina might be the side that... look, what, fifth favourites there? I
wouldn't have them fifth favourites, I'll tell you that, especially here coming off two Copa Americas and being world reigning champions. I think Argentina are a team that normally Messi plays every single minute, and we know he's getting a bit on in years, so you wonder if an easier group allows them to rest Messi. I'm pretty certain he'll start every game, Kev, but do you bring him off after an hour and give others minutes? They've got so many number 10s. They've got Almada, they've got Mastantuono, they've got Nico Paz, they've got all these guys that need some experience at this level. So maybe that'll help Argentina, where they have the strength and depth, particularly in attacking areas. So I think they're being fifth favourites there is a little bit harsh on Argentina. I'd have them higher up.
Well, as you can imagine, bettors, when they're looking at the list, they're obviously going to favour the chalk options at the top. That's where you'd imagine most of the money goes to. But we got to pull it back to Canada. A team like Canada, 100-1 to win the tournament. There's a crowd of teams down there, obviously, all in a similar payout, similar odds. Stevie, you know, we're going to run to a board here. Are there any teams that are a bit lower in the rankings that you think could potentially pull off a bit of a surprise? A bit of a surprise and go all the way and win it. 100-1, right? That's tough. You say this is a big stretch, right?
Listen, I hope Canada do really well, but I'd have them way higher than 100-1. I'd have them about 1,000-1 to win the World Cup. It's so hard, Kev, isn't it?
I think overall they're looking at a last 8 spot as being true success for Canada. So it's a difficult one to call when you're looking at it like that, Stevie. Yeah, but there's one or two. I mean, we spoke about Norway that won't be obviously in the top 10 ranked sides. Who could go and cause a problem?
Morocco,
Colombia. Morocco got to the semi-final last time out. It's such a hard one to call, and I honestly believe it. And people might think it's quite lame when you look at it, but it's something that you and I have spoke about constantly. The weather is going to come into effect in this tournament. Absolutely is. And if you get the wrong location, it will be very difficult for a European side to go and compete at the level or the standard of play that they're used to playing at in a hot climate. I think that's going to be difficult.
If the heat is so high and the conditions are grueling and it ends up being slower matches and maybe less chances, then there is a side like Ecuador who could actually potentially go really far or all the way because they are so solid at the back. If you're winning games on penalty kicks and you're maybe winning games 1-0, I think they're a side that is a real outsider that I don't think go all the way, but certainly pretty deep because of that solidity at the back. They're so good.
I'm not telling you to feature anything here. I just want to share some names.
Okay.
Paraguay, Austria, Korea Republic. Those are all teams that share the same odds as Canada to win the entire thing. So when you look down that far list, maybe at a tournament like this, it doesn't happen, but there are some teams of high quality that are still at that length in terms of Canada being 101 to be able to pull it off.
I think it comes back to the importance of Canada winning the group to stay in Canada. That's got to be the... If Canada have got any sort of chances, it has to be to stay in Canada and then staying in Vancouver where those knockout games will be. That's the important thing, and that's going to be difficult to top the group to stay in Canada. If not, they'll be in the US, and that's going to be very hard for them, Yeah,
then it's not a home World Cup, isn't it? And then they're up against it. But if they do stay in Canada, they somehow get to quarterfinals. It's anybody's tournament at that point, isn't it?
Yeah, anything can happen, as we know in the past. But in addition to betting outright markets, we know on FanDuel, they also love to have a market for the top goal scorer in these tournaments. Some familiar faces, as you guys would imagine, on this board here. We'll have Christopher Hine give us his take on the top goal scorer market coming up next as the FanDuel road to the final continues. What do the weekend Drake, Beyonce, and Shakira all have in common. They're among the top choices to be the halftime performer in next year's tournament final. Still a long way to go, but FanDuel has a long list of markets already out for the tournament, and this is obviously one of the more fun ones. Back with one of my favorite celebrities. Got Christopher Hine up in the house.
You're too kind, Wes. You're too kind.
Look, Hine, we've seen some movement in the market for the top goal scorer on FanDuel. Obviously, Kylian Mbappe, Harry Kane, they're still at the top there. But you have your eye on somebody not on this list.
So here's the thing. I'm not going to come out here and tell you to bet something chalk. But when betting the top goal scorer market, you sort of have to. Because here's the thing. To win this, you need to make a deep run. 5 of the last 6 tournaments, person who's won this has made at least the semifinal. The only person to not do it, James Rodriguez in 2014. So, who am I looking at? Well, Spain is the favorite, and let's look at what Spain's group looks like, because Saudi Arabia and Cape Verde, look at the odds, plus 75,000, 7th longest odds of everybody in the tournament. Let's not forget 4 years ago, Spain put 7 past Costa Rica in a group stage game. But here's the problem with Spain. They don't have an Mbappe. They don't have a Kane. Everybody is scoring goals. You see the odds here. It's pretty long for all of these guys. On their quest to becoming European champions in 2024, they had 10 people score goals. Dani Olmo led the way with 3. He's not even on this list. So who am I looking at? Torres, 27-1. I like a little sprinkle there with Torres.
Of course you do.
Just a little sprinkle. And one other note, we're going to go super long shot here. This guy's not even on the FanDuel odds. If Germany makes a run, Nick Voltemade came from Stuttgart to Newcastle, very on brand, of course. He's having a really good year so far. Here's the thing. Miroslav Klose is not the leading goal scorer in tournament history without 8-0 against Saudi Arabia, where he got a hat trick. Germany loves to beat up on bad teams. Curacao in the group, just saying, just a little sprinkle, just a little sprinkle.
Well, that's what you get, 32 to 48 teams. First time we've ever seen it. Obviously going to be a factor. Plenty of star power when it comes to the top goal scorer market. Love the breakdown there, the thinking behind the picks as well. That's my way. I make my way back to the couch here. Here are the top choices to lead the tournament in scoring. Kylian Mbappe, obviously at the top. Harry Kane, a close second behind there. A little bit of a gap after that, but obviously some familiar names on that board there. Gentlemen, as you can imagine, a lot of names that you could probably pick through when it comes to going through his. But when you look at this list, do you guys think it's fair for the order that they have it in and the odds that they're being given?
I think that's fair. Certainly the top 4 I'm looking at because, well, certainly Argentina, France, England, and Norway. I mean, I don't think Norway's going to win it. That's why
he's so high.
Haaland is a bit further down than the other 2 because Haaland is essentially the best goal scorer that's probably there within the 3. So Messi.
What are you saying about Messi's odds there, Kev?
Messi's good. I think that's good odds
I do as well.
because we know that Messi will have a big influence on the tournament. He will certainly be a key player for them. Alvarez, a teammate of his, is another one that does like to be in positions to score to feed off Messi. But I can't really argue with Mbappe at the top because I do feel as though that France will probably hit a semi-final with the players that they've got, and Mbappe will be the main guy for them, and he will be scoring the goals. Judging what he's done in the last 2 tournaments, Stevie, I think Mbappe's probably a good shout in that one.
Yeah, I think obviously team success depends on usually who's the top scorer. You got to get to semis or final, and you look at France and England and Argentina, they're likely going to be in the latter stages. So I think Messi's the best bet there, the odds that he's at, knowing that he still gets the goals, he still has the ability to drift into space at the right time. Lamine Yamal, for me, I very much doubt it. We've not seen too much in his young career that he can score prolifically at this level, or even for his club Barcelona. So I think I wouldn't. You know, if you're putting everything you had in it, you go for Mbappe. But I think when you see the odds there, maybe
you like Haaland.
You know, I like Haaland because I think Haaland is capable of having a game where he gets 3, 4, 5 goals.
Absolutely.
He's done it before. He can do it again. If he gets a weaker opponent and he gets the chances, he's going to convert them. So I kind of like his odds, although I feel like Norway would have to at least get to a quarter-final, maybe a semi-final.
Yeah, well, I think if they get to that stage, it's going to be, what, 5 or 6 games for Norway. We know how prolific Haaland is. He scores on an average, usually of more than a goal a game. So Haaland could, from 5 games, quite easily get 8 goals. That could be enough.
What do you think the number is for top scorer through the tournament?
Was Mbappe 8 last tournament? So if you're looking at
one more game.
One more game. Oh, 10.
I could see 10.
10, yeah. I could see 10. Somewhere between 7 and 10. I think anywhere around that, and you're going to be right in the mix, aren't you?
Yep.
Yeah, it was shared earlier. I think the last 5 tournaments, last 6, the average number of goals by the winner was 6.5.
Right.
So, you know, obviously a lot of room to go up there.
Yep.
But one of the other things that Hein brought up earlier that I got to point out to you guys, you know, of all the players that have won this award, you mentioned already, kind of have to have a deep run at the tournament.
Yeah.
But there's been a change in terms of the format of the tournament, more teams advancing. Do you think that format change has any influence on who ends up winning this award?
Yeah, it could do. Yeah. It gives you got the extra game as well, remember, with the last 32. And you've got 48 teams, so you've got weaker teams. We've already talked about no group of death. So a lot of pot 4 teams are there for the taking for the big boys. They're going to get more chances, more opportunities to get a World Cup hat-trick is such a unique thing. But we could get 6, 7, 8 hat-tricks in this tournament.
And I think when you look down to those pot 4 sides, outside maybe the European sides we've spoken about with those playoff games, there's teams that you would expect to concede 4 or 5 goals.
Exactly.
And within that, as you say, with Haaland, you could, as crazy as it seems, 10, 15 years ago, you wouldn't be saying a player could score 5 goals in one match.
Yeah.
I was going to call him Alfie Haaland, his dad there. Erling Haaland could easily score 5 goals in one match. It's not beyond him. So if you're looking at it like that, that's where opening the tournament up does give the chance for a player to actually be... They could do it in 2 games, essentially. Haaland could do it in 2 matches.
Yeah. As you mentioned, pot 4 opening a different quality on the back end there. But another thing to point out on FanDuel, they have obviously a bunch of odds available. One of the markets that they will have is Canada's top goal scorer. That'll come down the pipe. Is there one name that stands out to you on this team that must step up for Canada, Kevin?
Jonathan David. It has to be, doesn't it? He's the player that you expect for Canada to score the goals, the big goals, and he has scored big goals for Canada in the past. He hasn't been getting a lot of chances recently in a Canadian jersey, but if there's one Canadian player that potentially could be around these sort of guys, just off it, it's Jonathan David, isn't it?
Yeah, absolutely. And his conversion rate is really high. He's just not getting as many chances as he needs. But then you look at a game like Qatar where you say, can Canada get Jonathan David in the right position? If he can get 6 chances, maybe 5, 6 chances in that game, he could get a hat-trick himself. So it's going to be important that David gets closer to the goal. He's been playing in this deeper position. But he's the guy that Canada want to be on the end of a cross or on a little slip ball through to finish it off. He's shown that he can be really efficient when he is in that position. Well,
as you'd imagine, FanDuel will have plenty of markets available, like top goal scorer for Canada, USA, Mexico. But as we move on, these are the teams that we have here, the top choices to lead the tournament in scoring yet again. We will be right back after the break as the FanDuel road to the final continues here.
Coverage of the FIFA World Cup 2026 final draw on TSN is presented by Adidas. You got this.
The stage is nearly set. 48 teams, 6 more spots to be decided, including final spot in Group B. FanDuel might be tipping their hand that they expect Italy to be the final team that qualifies for Group B. After all, Italy is the only team competing for that final spot with shorter odds to win the tournament than Canada. Italy, 35-1 to win the tournament, despite the fact that they haven't even qualified yet. Canada, obviously, a distant third in that group. Wild to obviously see that. But, you know, it's worth bringing back up. We always talk about chalk in terms of these betting markets ahead of tournaments like this. Spain, can't give them enough love. There's obviously the team that's expected to be the favorite to this. As you look at this list, I want to get your thoughts. Do you think Spain is going to hold on and be in this driver's seat all the way through the tournament?
Well, this man next to me loves Spain. He's seen a lot of them through qualification and he's waxed lyrical to me many times on phone calls and texts. And they're an outstanding team, aren't they, Kev? And they're a team that just completely dominate opponents that you feel might give them some problems, you know. So I often want to look at what they're missing without looking at what they're actually really great at, which is keeping the ball, which is dismantling teams through possession-based football. But as we saw in the Euros, they can be more direct when they need to be now. They're a team that can mix it up a little bit, and they totally dominated that tournament. So I'm good with them being favourites. I'm not so sure that it would be my favourite, but there's certainly value for that.
Well, I think the only thing that goes again, if this tournament was in Europe, they would win it. I genuinely believe that. Something goes against them here because potentially we spoke earlier about weather and things like that. But the group favours them. I expect them to beat Uruguay. I expect them to beat Cabo Verde. Who was the other side? I'm trying to think who was in that group as well. So the group that they have, I think they'll get 9 points. And then after that, it will be what happens elsewhere and where they're going to go to. I think Spain have got the best roster, the best squad of players without a doubt. A lot of young players. They have the experience now of winning the last Euro. And looking at them, I still think that once they find a feet within the heat and they could become acclimatised to wherever they're playing, I think they'll be fine.
What do you think of the 9 position, though? Because it's an area where Spain have struggled. The goals, you know. They've got Moreno, who could play up there, as he's done for Arsenal. He sometimes does it for Spain. Ferran Torres, you've got Oyarzabal, who's done quite well there. But they don't have that out-and-out number 9. We've talked about Mbappe and Kane and Haaland and these guys who can fire their sides to victory. Is that enough? Are they going to have enough?
I don't think that affects them, Stevie, because so often, you mentioned, I've speaking about them in qualification, watching them, how they qualify for the tournament. I saw them beat Turkey in Turkey 6-0, and they beat them. I think they had 6 different goal scorers in the game. They dismantle a side by having so many different goal scorers.
A pass into the net,
that's why I wouldn't be going with one of their players to be top scorer in the tournament, because they spread the goals around the team so often. You'll have a midfielder that will be running from deeper line position to get into a goal scoring position. They do interchange positions better than any other team, I think, that's in this tournament. So that's why I wouldn't be going necessarily on at one Spain player to be top scorer. So in answer to that question, I don't think that's a major problem for them, Stevie, with how they dismantle teams.
Well, there might not be a top goal scorer from this team I'm about to mention. We made it to the end of the show. Haven't even talked about the United States, one of the co-hosts of the show. Obviously, they're favored to win Group D. How do you guys feel about their outlook for this tournament?
Well, they had a very favourable draw. They couldn't have wished for a better group draw than they've got. It's an incredible draw for them. Turkey's the one that will give them potential. I think that if Turkey do qualify out of the qualification, I think that might be the game that you'd look at that potentially is a 50-50 game with the US, perhaps maybe slightly in Turkey's favour. But I expect them to beat Paraguay. I expect them to beat Australia, and I think they'll get out and give themselves a chance of progressing as a winning that group, Stevie. So this is where the US come into it. That I don't feel as though they'll go beyond the last 16. I think that's at best for them, but they feel they can go on and win it. They have high expectations of themselves, and that is where they are really overall. Yeah, one of the most overhyped teams in the tournament for me. I don't think they're anywhere near as good as their press, their public think that they are. I think that I can only imagine what the coverage is like in the US at the minute. Looking at that group, they'll be saying they're going to breeze through it. They're going to get 9 points. I don't see it. They played Paraguay recently in a friendly match, which they won, and also Australia, but the Paraguay game particularly was a lot closer than I saw it. And I think that as it gets closer and closer, the pressure will be there for the USA, because there is a group that they should qualify from. They should probably win. And I think as it gets closer, Kev, it's going to build and build. And as you mentioned, if a team like Turkey come through that last place and you've got Paraguay and they don't win the group and they end up in a different path, then again, it's going to be way more difficult than it is, you know, the kind of path that's been set for them. And Turkey have 2 or 3 real superstars within the Yildiz and Güler. Outstanding footballers. So they're sides that or players, sorry, that could easily get into the US side, and they could hurt the US really badly. So that's a potential, as I said before, game they could lose in. But in saying that, I just think the expectations for them, is going off what Stevie's saying, will be lifted because they will get out. I fully expect them to get out. That won't necessarily be in their favour then, because they'll be expected then, once they get out of that group, probably topping it, absolutely second, they'll think they're going to go on and win the World Cup, which they will not do.
They must win that group now. They have to win that group. That is such a, you know, a sort of advantageous group for them to get. They've got to go through that group. They have to win it, and it sets them on the path that was laid out for them, let's say. But a wonderful draw for them. Probably overall, when you think about what could have come for the US, that is as good as it possibly could have got, and I'm sure they're going to have confidence from it. But I don't know if it's you know, justified really in a lot of ways. I think they're overhyped. I think they've got players that believe they're better than what they are, and I think they might fall flat in their face at some point.
Well, look, guys, it goes without saying, obviously a very, very long day for the both of you, but it was a ton of fun. Obviously want to thank you guys both for doing this.
Thanks, Wes.
The draw.
Thank you.
It's done. The groups are kind of finally set. We still need to find out who's going to be playing in the final team for Canada. They're 100-1 to win it all at FanDuel, but there are still a few more stops before we get there, as the FanDuel road to the final continues on.
Coverage of the FIFA World Cup 2026 final draw on TSN is presented by FanDuel. We all speak footy.